Hi everybody, Grammy B here, and I'm here to read you the second half of the story where Piglet meets a Heffalump. Yesterday, or whenever the last time you watched the last video, or if you didn't, Pooh and Piglet were talking to Christopher Robin, and Christopher Robin had seen a Heffalump. So Pooh and Piglet decide that they want to trap the Heffalump. And they talk about how they're going to do it, whether you should dig a big hole and put acorns in it, which is what Piglet likes to eat, or whether you should put honey in it, which of course is what Winnie the Pooh likes. So they decide to do honey, and Winnie the Pooh goes home and gets his honey jar, and he comes back and they put it in there. And then when they go home and he goes to bed, he's just thinking about that honey. And he sings a little song to himself. And now let's see what happens. He's counting Heffalumps trying to get to sleep. And every Heffalump that he counted was making straight for the pot of his honey and eating it all. For some minutes, Winnie the Pooh lay there miserably. But when the 587th Heffalump was licking its jaws and saying to itself, "Very good honey, this. I don't know when I've tasted better," Pooh could bear it no longer. He jumped out of bed and he ran out of the house and he ran straight to the 7 pine trees. There's Winnie the Pooh dreaming about the Heffalump. So we do see a Heffalump, and it certainly looks like an elephant to me. I have seen elephants before. The sun was still in bed, but there was a lightness in the sky over the 100-acre wood which seemed to show that it was waking up and would soon be kicking off its clothes. In the half-light, the pine trees looked cold and lonely, and the very deep pit seemed deeper than it was, and Pooh's jar of honey at the bottom was something mysterious, a shape and no more. But as he got nearer to it, his nose told him that it was indeed honey, and his tongue came out, and he began to polish up his mouth, ready for it. There he is, leaning over the hole, the deep pit, looking at his honey, but you could barely see because it's still kind of dark out. "Bother," said Pooh, and he got his nose inside the jar. "A Heffalump's been eating it." And then he thought a little and he said, "Oh no, I did. I forgot." Indeed, he had eaten most of it, but there was a little left in the bottom of the jar, and he pushed his head right in and he began to lick. And by Piglet woke up. And as soon as he awoke, he said to himself, "Oh." And then he said bravely, "Yes." And then still more bravely, "Quite so." But he didn't feel very brave, for the word which really was jigging about in his brain was Heffalumps. What was a Heffalump like? Was it fierce? Did it come when you whistled? And how did it come? Was it fond of pigs at all? If it was fond of pigs, did it make any difference what sort of pig? Supposing it was fierce with pigs, would it make any difference if the pig had a grandfather called Trespasser William? Here's little Piglet in bed, thinking about the big Heffalump. He didn't know the answer to any of these questions, and he was going to see his first Heffalump in about an hour from now. Of course, Pooh would be with him, and it was much more friendly with two. But suppose Heffalumps were very fierce with pigs and bears. Wouldn't it be better to pretend that he had a headache and he couldn't go to the 6 pine trees this morning? But then suppose it was a very fine day and there was no Heffalump in the trap. Here he would be in bed all morning, simply wasting his time for nothing. What should he do? And then he had a clever idea. He would go up very quietly to the 6 pine trees now and peep very cautiously into the trap, and he would see if there was a heffalump there. And if there was, he would go back to bed. And if there wasn't, he wouldn't. So off he went. Brave little Piglet. At first he thought that there wouldn't be a heffalump in the trap, and then he thought that there would. And as he got nearer, he was sure that there would, because he could hear it heffalumping about like anything. "Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear," said Piglet to himself, and he wanted to run away. But somehow, having just got near, he felt that he must see what a heffalump looks like. So he crept to the side of the trap, and he looked in. And all the time, Winnie the Pooh had been trying to get the honey jar off his head. And the more he shook it, the more tightly it stuck. "Bother," he said inside the jar, and "oh, help," and mostly "ow." And he tried bumping against things. But as he couldn't see what he was bumping against, it didn't help him. And he tried to climb out of the trap. But as he could see nothing but jar, and not much of that, he couldn't find his way. So at last he lifted up his head, jar and all, and he made a loud roaring noise of sadness and despair. And it was at that moment that Piglet looked down. "Help! Help!" cried Piglet. "A heffalump! A horrible heffalump!" And he scampered off as hard as he could, still crying out, "Help! Help! A horrible heffalump! Huff! Huff! A hellable horralump! Hull! Hull! A huffable hellarump!" And he didn't stop crying and scampering until he got to Christopher Robin's house. Now I got to go back because I'm on this page and I got to show you the picture of what Piglet sees. Not that page, this one here. Here he's seeing Winnie the Pooh with a honey jar stuck on his head. Silly Winnie the Pooh. And now he's so scared because he thinks that's what a heffalump is. So there comes Christopher Robin to help him. And you can see how little Piglet is. He's a tiny little guy. "Whatever's the matter, Piglet?" said Christopher Robin, just getting up. "Heff!" said Piglet, breathing so hard he could hardly speak. "A heffalump." "Where?" "Up there," said Piglet, waving his paw. "What did it look like?" Like it had the biggest head you ever saw, Christopher Robin. It was a great enormous thing, like nothing, like a huge big, like I don't know, like an enormous big nothing, like a jar." "Well," said Christopher Robin, putting on his shoes, "I shall go and look at it. Come on." Piglet wasn't afraid if he had Christopher Robin with him, so off they went. "I can hear it. Can't you?" said Piglet anxiously as they got near. "I can hear something," said Christopher Robin. It was Pooh, bumping his head against a tree root that he had found. "There," said Piglet, "isn't it awful?" And he held on tight to Christopher Robin's hand. Suddenly Christopher Robin began to laugh. And he laughed, and he laughed, and he laughed. And while he was still laughing, crash went the heffalump's head against the tree root, smash went the jar, and out came Pooh's head again. And then Piglet saw what a foolish Piglet he had been, and he was so ashamed of himself that he ran straight home and he went to bed with a headache. But Christopher Robin and Pooh went home to breakfast together. "Oh, Bear," said Christopher Robin, "how I do love you." "So do I," said Pooh. Poor little Piglet, he was so scared. Because he is tiny, and heffalumps are big. All right, boys and girls, that's the end. Oh, boys and girls, whoever. You don't have to be a boy or girl to listen to the story. That was the end of How Piglet Found the Heffalump. And tomorrow we'll read chapter 6, in which Eeyore has a birthday and gets 2 presents. Thanks for listening.